Imagine this. You're freshly graduated from high school, and you're not all too sure what you're going to be doing with your life. So you decided to take a breather for a few months to get a better grasp at things. The few months roll over to the new year, and you finally decided you're going to college to pursue a trade that you know is going to benefit you in the long haul financially. After a year's worth of college, you've gotten the job you've trained for. You graduate a few months after that, and now you're in the system. You're feeling at the top of the world, knowing that you set aside a year's worth of your time for a higher education. You're finally getting hands-on on the field, learning the job specifics, and just heading towards a better future. There's only one thing that's in your way, though. And there's intrusive thoughts telling you, I wonder what my life could have looked like if I pursued this job, this career. But these jobs are minuscule to the bigger picture, right? A few more months rolls on by. These thoughts that were so minor at first begin to boil up and eventually snowball to the point of, this isn't what I want to be doing anymore. This doesn't align with my values, and I would prefer doing something else, even if it's at the risk and at the price at my pay. Now the new recruitment in the job cycles again. You're learning the job specifics. You're learning a whole other type of career than what you've been previously worked in and been trained in. And, you feel pretty satisfied about where you're at now. A few months goes on by, feeling pretty good, even knowing the back of your head that the pay decrease was worth it. You would rather have a fulfilled purpose than a meaningless life with slightly more pay. So now fast forward to a few months to a year later, where priorities have changed yet again. So like I mentioned in this sort of scenario, you've got this current job you have now is more suited towards your goals. But now the problem isn't to pursue a purpose. Now it's the pursuit of the bag. Money is becoming a problem, and the economy isn't really helping with that. That combined with your current job not adapting to that meta, now you're on the job search yet again. You do job search after job search, and then after some time, you finally land one. And mind you, it doesn't suit towards your goals, but it does meet your financial needs while pursuing something that you still enjoy as a hobby, but you can still make money off of it, right? So you get the job and it's going pretty well as expected. There's a minor mistake that you make, which is being late and being a little bit slow. But then again, you're feeling reassured, knowing that it was a minor mistake and you're a good person. You're not doing anything majorly wrong. And then you just get a call one day, and not even a week goes on by after working the new job, and you get canned just like that. But now you're scrambling to find a new job and considering going back to the old job. But that wouldn't solve the issue, because the issue was not enough pay. So now you're scrambling to find full-time jobs, and you're applying left and right. And like I said, you're a good person, and of course that depends on the person, but to you, you're a good person, right? You have good morals, you're a reasonable person, nothing, out of the ordinary. And then now, after a few weeks of interviews after interviews after interviews, you've come to the conclusion of, well, the full-time jobs are just not it anymore, and part-time jobs are the way to go. So now you've changed your strategics of sorts, and now your aim is to get 2 part-time jobs. More flexible, more income. But now that you have to adapt to the meta, something you've never been doing before. You never worked 2 jobs at the same time. And now this is your current situation. And now the reason why I tell you all of this is because I want you to put you guys in my shoes. And how does this relate to Super Mario Brothers? Well, the answer to that question is this. In 5-3 of Super Mario Bros. 3, there's an unusual power-up called the Karibo Shoe. That translated into English is the Goomba Shoe. The primary use of this power-up, it allows Mario to easily jump and kill on non-stompable enemies, along with standing on harmful territory without being damaged whatsoever. The way you actually get this power-up too is also quite unusual. Usually you would get the power-up either a question mark block, a brick block, or just a roulette style type of block that you would see in the games. But in this case, you steal it from a Goomba. And what do I mean by that? So, how you're introduced to this item is you see a Goomba just hop around in this thing, and you have to stomp on the Goomba, and then the power-up is all yours. You don't give it a second thought, right? You see the Goomba, yeah, it's a little different, but same principles apply. You jump on it, and it gives you an item, which is his shoe, and now you have the ability to just stomp around, and you're able to just be more free with, where you land and who you stomp on and such. Basically, kind of Mario on steroids a little bit, so to say, to his jumps at least. And now gets you wondering, how did it feel for the Goomba to have that? Because it's already hard enough to be a Goomba. Like, think about it, right? You have no arms, you just have stubby little feet, not really doing much. He doesn't have the intelligence of knowing where to go. Like, he could still jump off the ledge with the shoe, but being a normal Goomba, he just walks off the edge. Like, does he want to be walking off the edge, or he could just not mentally have the capacity of learning, oh, that's a ledge, do not walk off that. And it gets you wondering, like, you really have to, now you're really in his shoes, right? And yeah, for you, it's not that much of a power increase, but for him, it was like, he was feeling like God. And you just stole that from him. And another, like, more, I guess, reasonable example is, like, you're building a physique. You're getting better and better results. But then you have, like, your prior friends, or I guess your ex-friends or your acquaintances, they invite you to, like, the bar. They invite you for certain things, or basically your loved ones trying to take you away. They're trying to spend a lot of time with you, but then they claim they don't love them. But you're trying to improve yourself by doing healthier actions. And they assume, oh yeah, like, whatever. But you gotta be in their shoes. Like, what's their goal? Their goal is to either compete in a bodybuilding, like, competition and, pose and shit, and, get the recognition and achieve their goals. But all they see is like, oh yeah, they don't want to spend time with me. You really gotta be in their shoes, right? Understand what it's like for them. Another scenario. Imagine you're a person with a disability, and someone treats you poorly. It's uncalled for. and they just assume, they give you assumptions. They give assumptions of you, and that's not entirely fair, because you sometimes people with disabilities, that wasn't their choice. Either they're born with it or some accident happened where they had no control over, and they just wound up like this. And people expect more out of you when people expect a little more. Like when you're disabled, either they expect less or they expect more from you, but they don't know the context of your injuries, like what you have and such. And really put yourself in their shoes. Like how is their life like, you know? And you know, the lesson is just, you don't know what it's like to be them until you're in their shoes. Right. So like going back to my example, you don't know how it's like to be jobless and, you know, not really have to work until you're there. I'm like, yo, yeah, just get a job. That's what I've been trying to do. It's not like I've been just sitting around doing nothing about it. I've been doing shit about it, you know? And people could see them as like being a bum when they're just trying to give it their all, you know? And trying to make man's meat, you know? People don't really understand where people are coming from until they're in their exact position. And I think a way to avoid that circumstance from happening is I feel like this is like a math problem. So you could write this about like why you're feeling the way you're feeling. You could write this about this scenario, about what does it feel like to be unemployed, or what does it feel like to be broken up with? What does it feel like to be unhealthy? And write all the cons and write all the possible, be like autistically detailed and precise and intricate about your description of what it could be like. And maybe like act on those like decisions, or act on those possible outcomes. How would it make you feel now? And of course, when you're acting out the scenario, you're not actually in the scenario, of course, but you know, you gotta try to wrap your head around like how real of a situation that could be for you. And if you don't, and you just overlook it, don't give it much care, but give it much thought, you might wound up in an unfortunate scenario where now you're wishing for the good times, and you've seen those times you were just in, you just taken it for granted, and now you see those as the good times. And you know, you could also say this as for the bad situation you're in. You could be homeless. You could be in a worse situation. You could be wound up in a hospital. You know, I feel like somebody always has it worse than you, but that doesn't like erase the thought of, totally doesn't eliminate their feelings on anything, right? I'm just giving the reasons, the timeline of events that happened that led them to this very point. And then you can't just point your finger around, because the reason why you point your finger negatively is because you're basing their current situation on your timeline of events. That makes no sense. You have to construct a timeline of their, you gotta try your best to construct their timeline to see if it falls up and leads to their present moment. Because I feel like most people take their timeline and then see what like they're currently doing, and they take their current lifestyle and then try to equal, or try to make the equivalent of like their current situation. Like, dude, just get a job. Like, it's not that easy, man. But yeah, general lesson is just, please really understand people, get a better understanding. You can't, when you say, oh, I feel you, I get where you're coming from, I understand how you feel, make sure you repeat that to yourself. Do you really understand? Do you really feel what they're feeling? Or is it an assumption on your end? Ask them about it. Get more juicy details about their current living situation. What's on their mind lately? You know, There's a lot of contexts that never come out of people's heads, and it's just stuck to them. And, you know, it's unfortunate, but it's just the way it is. But I just hope you come out of the video just with a better understanding of just getting to know people better and their contexts without jumping to situations or into situations and into assumptions. If you do that, like, your life is going to be worse because they might be a great person, but you're just shying yourself away from them just because you're associating their present time with your timeline, which makes no sense because that's not equivalent. It's not equivalent in the slightest, you know. It's like saying 8 squared is like 65 when it's 64, you know. There's some missed variables that had them add up to the sum of their events, of their situation. So this was a little bit more than you thought, wasn't it? Well, I want you to be put in my perspective of these videos and really analyze the games that you love, or really anything in general, rather. And it's just been assumed that I just play games just to play games, which is not entirely true. I enjoy games, but I also enjoy the hidden meanings of some mechanics, some features, some elements of games that I love. And I just want to share that with you because there's actually some meaningful insights you can get from just anything in life that happens to spark a thought that inspires you or that you connect to. I think that's important and it really matters. And with that, I wanted to thank you for spending any time out of your day just to watch and or listen to my content. And if you like content similar to this, feel free to sub and, you know, stay tuned to whatever I have to produce. Thank you so much. Ciao for now.